Good afternoon. I see everybody joining in. So go ahead and join on in. We'll get started in just a minute. As you're coming in, we're going to do the same thing we've done the last two episodes. Put your name, your church name in the chat. That enters you to win our live giveaway. And you're going to be excited about today's giveaway. We're going to talk about that here shortly. We're going to give everybody one more minute. Log in, tell me where you're from, and see who we got today. So go ahead and tell us where you're from, and we will get started here shortly. We have exciting day planned. All right, I have Justin Hill. Hey, Justin, First Baptist Church in Fredericksburg, Texas. David from Ohio, First Church of the Nazarene, Mission Point, Mansfield, Ohio. Oh, hey, Brad, Habeger Grace Church, Morton, Illinois. Who else we got on the call today? Tell us where you're from. That enters you to win. We have actually 4 winners today that we're going to go with. So go ahead, tell us where you're from, and then we'll get started. All right, let's jump in. Today, I am excited to introduce our expert in just a minute. This is episode 3 for those that are just jumping on. Put your name, your church name in the chat box. That enters you to win after the episode today. Today, we are talking about leveraging our outreach by using our ministry resources effectively. If you've been following along, this is episode 3 of our 4-part series. Hopefully, this has come just in time for you as you're walking through your basketball league, getting it ready. So now we're coming to the place of resources. What do we have along the line of ministry resources? How do we implement these? So what better way? I wanted to bring our expert. His name is Ron Daniels. He's a ministry consultant and a former Upward Sports League director. So hi, Ron. How are you?
Hey, Jennifer, I'm doing good. Glad to be here.
We are glad you're here. It's going to be an exciting day. Again, I see a few people jumping in. Add your church name, where you're from in the chat box. I see Mark at Door Creek Church. He just signed in, so welcome, Mark. Today, we're going to walk through the resources that we have available. Some of these are hot off the press. Some of these are new and improved. And so I want to showcase each one to you, as well as give you some tips of how to implement these. So I brought Ron with us. As we go through today, as you have questions, we will take time at the end and answer those questions live. So when you have a question, put those in the Q&A section or the chat feature, and we will get to those at the end of today. Again, we have Ron. He is our expert. So if you have questions, here's his information. Feel free to reach out to him afterwards. Today's giveaway, and we're going to hit on this in a little bit, Ron, but this is our new follow-up guides. So if you haven't seen them, they're really, really neat. We're going to talk about these, but we are going to give 1 pack away to 4 churches today. So that is our giveaway. They're $30 for a pack of 10. So those are what we will give away today. So stay tuned. At the end, we will draw names for 4 different churches. So I'm excited about that. And David says, woohoo. I agree, David. Woohoo it is, for sure. We're going to cover 2 topics today. I like to tell you where we're going and what we're covering. 1, why sports ministry? You guys are on here because you love sports. You love Jesus. Put them together. We have sports ministry. So I wanted us to hit on that a little bit. And then we're going to showcase 6 or 7 different resources. How do you use them? And what do they look like? And where do you find them in My Upward? So we're going to even give you that information. So let's talk about why sports ministry. That is our first topic. And we know sports is a common language in all households. I'm a mom of 2 boys and they love sports. We play basketball in the driveway, or we may play football at school at recess. And here we may have children, and a lot of children play in our organized league experience. So we know that sports are impactful. And when you use this as your outreach ministry, you see families, multiple members of families show up. And so it creates intentional relationships. So Ron, as we segue into our resources before, As a past league director, and now you get to consult with many churches, tell me what you see about the impact that sports is having on ministry outreach in churches today.
Yeah, basically the thing with sports ministry is that a lot of people have like a picture in mind when they think about sports, depending on whether or not they played it. And the impact is going beyond sports even. I'm finding that the bridge is being built with communities that churches didn't even know were there, to be honest with you, because people are coming from all different types of backgrounds and cultures, and sports is just this great unifier. I had one league director in Illinois who told me that this is turning into something that we never expected, and basically just allowing him to and the church to be able to connect with people of different cultures and different generations, and just going in a direction that they never could have imagined. So it's been huge. And so when it comes to the why of sports ministry, I always think about the fact of it's a unifier, and it's something that we have a lot more in common than you would realize. So it's huge.
I agree with that. If you follow along too on Community Heroes, I spotlight different churches each month. And that is exactly why sports. It is a common unifier. It brings communities together. I think that's so important. Ron, we have several churches on here that I see that are considering sports ministry for the first time. They're unsure about stepping in. They're just getting more information, but they're a little bit hesitant to step in. What would you tell them? How would you tell them to start? Or even what would you tell them if they're considering it? Why? Why should they?
Yeah. That's a big one, right? Like I can't pretend to know everybody's situation, but in general, with churches who are thinking about it, if you're doing your due diligence, chances are you want to make sure your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed before you jump into something. Like you don't want to get in there and it be something that you regret. Like with any new ministry, you want to make sure that it's what God wants you to do. And so I think the biggest thing that I could probably say would be, think about what your goals are. And if your goal is to, reach people who aren't already in the faith, people who don't know Christ, if that's your goal, and I feel like that's every church's goal in some way, shape, or form, then you should not only consider it, but you should look specifically at what would be most effective in your community. And so I know we're saying why, but essentially with sports, it's almost like why not, right? And those barriers are so overcomable. When I think about, the biggest one being, oh, we don't have the time, space, different things like that. Look at your resources, and I would consider, the story of Moses and God saying like, hey, what's that in your hand? And Moses has his staff, and God simply uses that to accomplish his will. So with sports, it's kind of like that. God can use what you have at your church, not what you don't have, but what you have at your church to accomplish the Great Commission. And it just creates so many opportunities for you to have conversations that you wouldn't otherwise be able to have. So, I would definitely, that's what I would say.
Thanks for saying that. So I love the part of what's your goal? Know those. What's your ministry? What does a ministry win look like for your church? I think that's important as well. And why not? Why not step in? So thanks for sharing that. We're going to move in now to the section that is super important to everybody on here, is our resources. What do we have? If you're on here today, you might be in a church that is considering it that we just spoke about. Well, I hope this helps you see that we are a ministry partner to you. All of these resources, not just one or two, are available to you, but all of them are available to you to access through your portal, which we call My Upward, that you would receive this login to once you become a partner. You guys that are already current partners, and I see a lot of you on here, I hope it makes your heart feel happy that a lot of this stuff is feedback from you that you have shared with our market research team or your regional ministry consultant or even partner support. So a lot of these resources have been enhanced, have been created based off of what you have said. So I hope that you know we listen to you. And it's very important for us to be able to serve alongside of you with resources that matter. All of these resources that we highlight, new or improved, again, came from you. Our goal as your ministry partners to support you. And I hope you see this. I'm so excited to spotlight these. As we go through, you're going to see an example on a lot of these slides of what it looks like. And then down in the corner is going to be a place where you can find each resource inside of My Upward. So when you come back to this later on, you will know where to find this resource. The first one, let's go through this, is the 2 devotion track option. Let's talk about this. Ron, this option is chosen during their league creation in My Upward. They're age specific, and they now get to choose between biblical virtues or biblical theme. And it is sports specific. Tell us a little bit about this, Ron, and the best way to implement it. How do we know which one to choose? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So like, at the beginning, when you're going through your league creation, the reason why there 2 different tracks were offered was because before we only had one, and there was this desire to actually go in a different direction. Maybe actually some churches were saying like they wanted to go a little bit deeper in a particular text. And so that's where the biblical themes came from. So when somebody's selecting a path, I've seen churches do many different things. I've seen where they alternate year to year, or they may alternate sport to sport. And I do find that churches who feel like, as a league director, you might feel like the kids who are in your league have a low biblical knowledge, a lot of biblical illiteracy, maybe a lot of misunderstanding about Christianity in general. They tend to lean towards the biblical virtues, because it does break down some basics, when it comes to teaching kids some of the basic truths of Christianity. But there are some things that are covered in both, and of course, we will always get to the gospel. That's what is a huge question with churches. It's like, well, wait a second, when are we going to be presenting the gospel? Does one not and one, do it? But they both do. We will always get to the gospel, the message of the good news of Jesus Christ. That is emphasized in both. However, with virtues, people find that, like, I usually see churches who have a lot of unchurched kids in their league, or kids with low biblical literacy. They'll tend to go towards the biblical virtues. The biblical themes is really appealing if you feel like, hey, I've got a lot of kids in my league who know the scripture, and they feel like they already kind of know some of these basic truths and virtues from scripture. And so biblical themes tends to be where they lean towards. But either way, there's always the gospel presentation in there. And like you said, it's age specific. So, even though we're looking at one text for everybody, you're going to pull out different things and reflect on it in a different way, depending on the age and grade of the kids.
Great knowledge. And again, it is, like Ron said, it's age specific. It is refreshed yearly. One question I had a couple days ago that someone was talking to me about was, I do soccer in the spring, flag football in the fall, I do basketball in the winter. Will they overlap? And the answer is no, because these are refreshed yearly. So our goal is that you have year-round ministry, so you are able to support a church year-round in different sport options that they have. So this is a great way to know that our devotions do not overlap. And so it is a great way to build upon each other. Thanks for giving us examples of that, Ron. So 2 devotion track option is the first, and that is available. And you choose that when you create your league. You get to choose which one you would like. Okay, let's go to the second one. Practice devotion with the scouting report. Practice devotions, again, Ron, they are age specific and they're updated, as I mentioned, each season and each sport. So your players They get to receive different ones we just mentioned. These are given by the coach weekly at practice. Something that we have new this year is the scouting report, and I'm going to show you that here in just a minute. But these scouting reports are designed to help your coaches understand what they're covering, to go dig a little bit deeper on their own, and it helps them grow in their own spiritual journey. So your coach is able to log in, see what they're supposed to be doing in their practice plan, and they also have the weekly devotion. I want to show you what one looks like. I think they look so great. You can see in the red section that is the scouting report. So that gives you exactly everything that the coach would need. So let's talk a little bit about this weekly practice devotion with the scouting report, Ron. Tell me how you are seeing the scouting reports strengthen coaches spiritually.
Well, the biggest reason why we added it, in talking with our team, was that a lot of coaches will step into the practices and feel really good about, basketball or soccer or flag football, whatever the sport is, but they may not feel so confident about leading a devotion. And so not only is the scouting report, valuable for the coaches for them to be prepared for devotion, but it's also valuable for people who are thinking about coaching, because you'll have volunteers who say like, oh, like, I don't think I can lead devotions. And so I don't want to step into it if I can't do it right. And so what we're seeing is that coaches are able to get the background information that they need, and are able to, it better helps them to prepare for the devotion, so that way they can go in confidently and lead the devotion for the kids. Because what's funny is that, the kids aren't physically intimidating themselves. Like, most coaches are bigger than their players. But when it comes to teaching kids stuff and they're not your own kids, it is a very intimidating thing. And so as directors, it's our job to communicate to them that, hey, look, you can do this, and we'll equip you on what you need to do to be a great devotion leader. So to any dad or mom who's looking to up their game spiritually in the home, this is great because they're going to get awesome practice. So the coaches have been able to look at this and say, hey, I know what's going on in this passage. So now I feel even better and more confident going in to lead the devotion for the kids.
That's great. And if you're looking at this, I did choose the virtues theme.
Yeah.
So as we go through this, you will see that these examples that I showed today are based off the virtues. I did want to also point out here, you can see the discussion questions. They are the age specific. So if you are a coach and you're in third grade, you could go down here and say, okay, I'm focusing on the third through the sixth grade section here. So when I have this conversation with these kids, that's how you go about that. And I just love the whole scouting report that they are able to dig in a little bit more on James 1:5. Where did this come from? What does this mean? What's the background to it? Ron, you were a past league director, and you and I have talked about this, that you did not have this option of a scouting report when you were leading coaches. This is something more new that has come along as they're coming down the line. They're at the very end. So before this, you were having to give these devotions, and a lot of times you yourself may have had to help a coach understand background on that. As you're talking to churches, Ron, how important are these scouting reports to leaders that are ministering to their coaches? How is this helping? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I've seen it, like as far as like feedback from churches, is the fact that coaches are feeling more confident, like going into it, like knowing that it's there. But also, it's important for the director to know that it's there, because the directors. And one thing that we've always tried to point out is like, hey, look, make sure you know like that it's there, and so that way you can let the coaches know that, hey, like that is there for you. And so they're feeling more confident when they're giving the devotions to the coaches, because they're like, hey, look, you don't have to know this like word for word. You don't have to just sit up there and read it word for word. You can actually prep for it. And it doesn't take long. That's the other thing too. Like, the coach can go as deep as he wants to go in the text, but so for instance, you put out the virtues. but for the biblical themes, the ones that stick with a particular character or passage, it's going to give the background information, and it's also going to give them some passages, just like that one displayed, on where they can do some further study if they would like. And so it's not just, it's basically keeping the coaches in mind, because one thing we realize is that as directors, and we'll talk about another resource here, is that the directors also have a responsibility to minister to the coaches. And so this also helps with the coaches' spiritual development and their life in Christ. So their directors are feeling more confident. That's a big part of the feedback. They're feeling more confident in equipping their coaches to be able to do it.
It's great if you're on here. If you remember from episode 2, we talked about leading a successful coach training, and Joel mentioned the scouting report in there. And this is a great way that you show them, that your coaches, this during that coach training, so they can reference this each week. So that's some practice devotion with our scouting reports. Let's move to coach connection guides. This builds on the same area that you were just talking about, Ron, of making sure that you are supporting your coaches and that they're not just out there for 8 weeks by themselves, but they are having communication with you as a league director. The goal of these coach connection guides is to develop relationships with your coaches. Again, we mentioned this last episode. Coaches are your lifeline. They are front and center to your families. They are ministering to your families. This helps you as a league director give them questions that correlate with their weekly devotions and that scouting report that you just saw. And it allows you to be able to ask questions to the coach. So Ron, tell me a little bit about connection guides. How do you see your church partners using those? And tell us how we implement this so it's not just this weird random text that they get.
So yeah, no, that's a really good question. So the one piece of advice that I've given to the league directors that I work with has been to use this in correlation with the email template that we provide. And I know like a bunch of directors actually didn't know, and it's fairly new to it, and probably just as new as this coach connection guide. But we provide an email template to help you connect with coaches. And it's just a guide. But if you were to look in the resources, we have that. And then we also have these questions. So yeah, you don't want to just copy and paste it and say like, hey, just one random question in an email and send it out to all your coaches. And then that's it. Like, hey, I checked the box, I did it. The question is designed to be in the body of an email that you would send. And I would just say this, and I think my counterparts here at Upward would second it. You should probably be in contact with your coaches on a weekly basis, whether that's the league director or the coach commissioner. Somebody in leadership for your league should be in contact with them on a weekly basis. It could be something as simple as encouragement, celebration for good things. But this is these questions are good to keep a spiritual intimacy going. And I know that's kind of a funny word to think about, intimacy. But the fact is that if you don't build a close relationship with your coaches, then a lot of times they won't be connected with anybody. And so what we find is that like coaches that don't have a good connection with leadership and coaches that aren't poured into over the season aren't the coaches that return a lot of times if they don't feel like they've been invested in. So it takes a little bit of time, but it's not much. And it's a way to spiritually invest in them. And it also gives you a posture of being a spiritual guide, if you will, and a spiritual mentor in that regard. Because while you're asking these coaches these questions, like one at the top says, do I believe truth ultimately comes from God? Why or why not? It's a great time to be vulnerable as a director or a commissioner and say, this is where I'm at. These are the truths that I've pulled out this week, or something that you're learning. So it's great. It's definitely a two-way street. And then also the fact is that even if a coach, so we were just talking about the scouting report. Even if a coach didn't look at the scouting report, let's say that you sending this email and baking this question in allows them to have a posture of, hey, I'm getting ready for this devotion. the league director or coach commissioner just asked me this question. So my mind's already thinking about what we're going to be talking about this week. So I would say this is a great question to send on a Sunday evening, maybe, or like, to kind of prep them for the week, or you could even consider, just depending on your league, afterward. But I'd probably send it on a Sunday night, before practices start.
I love that. And I love that we are staying in connection with our coaches. Again, this helps with your retention from year to year. And it also allows them to feel like they're part of something. And then when you ask a coach about joining a Bible study with you, or a men's group, or a ladies group, they already know who you are. You've created that connection. So it's not a weird between them. So that's great. Coach connection guides. We're going to move into parent companions. This is another piece that has been improved, and I feel it is extremely valuable. Our parent guides are aligning with the weekly devotion. All of this is building upon each other, and they're designed to engage with parents in spiritual conversations, or it may be a way for them to have questions while they're driving down the road. And it's not all about their gameplay, for example. This is a great way for them to have these spiritual conversations. So Ron, in regard to the parent guides, they're new. They're a great way to minister to our parents, and it gives them talking points. So they are answering it the way maybe it aligns with the devotion. Tell us about these, and how are you seeing league directors implement this into their league and get them in the hands of the parent?
Yeah, so there's the most effective way that I've seen, and actually experienced myself, has been to email it out. So there are two camps here. There are some leagues that, hey, look, just because of the way your community works, you want to print it off, and you feel like that is going to be the way that they're going to do it. However, most leagues most directors that I've talked to, putting stuff in parents' hands, and Jennifer, we had this conversation as parents. A lot of times you put it in a child's hand or my hand, and it's not because I dislike the person who gave it to me, or because anti-church is none of that. But for whatever reason, it always ends up on the floor, and consequently, it will eventually end up in the trash. So you have to kind of have a pulse on your league. But I would default to sending it in the body of an email. And I'm going to tell you why. Because if you send it as an attachment, a lot of times parents don't make it to the attachment. And Jennifer, if we're really being honest, like you look at the body of the email, and if I have to click on anything,
Yes.
and it's that, and I know many of the directors on here, you guys are parents, moms and dads, and so you get it. So do make it easy for the parents for this information, but it's huge, because here's the thing: you're like, hey, how does this work? How can this seems like a lot of work, and how can we actually be effective with it? The key is to be consistent, because when you consistently send it out at the same time, for the parents, they will begin to depend on it. And they're like, wait a second, that's what my kid talked about, you know. So when the child is coming home from practice, and they're like, hey, how did practice go? What did you guys talk about? The parent ideally would already have this, right? So how do you do that via email? You schedule the email out to go out probably the morning of that practice. And you can do all of that. Some people haven't realized that, but that's one thing I've always tried to highlight, is the fact that you can schedule emails to go out, and you can be as granular as you want to be. So you can schedule emails to go out to only parents who practice on Tuesday nights. And you can schedule that out, and then the parent the companion piece goes out, and you look like a rock star. It is the fact that, like, you're like, man, they're on it. Like, that's the feedback that happens from parents when you're constantly sending the communication out. They will always know what's going on in the child's practice session and their devotion. And also, that takes, as a league director, you could do this. Your coach commissioner could do this, but this is something that also supports the coach too, because the coach, keep in mind, is having these conversations with the child, but they're not necessarily always in a position to send out something like this. So you, as a director or commissioner, sending this out or scheduling it to go out, ideally I would so that way you can set it and forget it, is awesome because it just keeps the parent in the loop. And also you're all of a sudden doing ministry in the home without being in the home, if you know, to kind of use that illustration. So
I love it. So if you're on here, take a little extra time and schedule this out. Don't wait and feel like you have to do this every Sunday afternoon. Schedule it out. That's a new feature that is there inside of my Upward. I would take several hours and map out my devotion timeline. And this is what I would do. I'd schedule things out so that you are able to stay in the lives of these parents. That is very, very beneficial. All right, let's go to halftime devotion resources. This is one that you really brought up to me, Ron, about the importance of halftime devotion resources. This is a great way to supply your halftime devotion speaker with materials so they don't have to spend tons of time preparing. For me, as a past league director as well, sometimes you get nervous and you tell people you have 4 minutes. 3 minutes, and they get up there and they speak for 12 minutes, and you are now behind on your game day. I know all of you on here have done this and seen it. These devotions are helpful. They correspond with practice devotions, or some of them are just extras that you can just pick and choose how you want to do these devotion resources. I love it because you're able to say, hey, can you do a devotion for me? And today it's going to correlate with this virtue of honesty, and you give this to them. Now, we don't want somebody to stand up there and read it, but they can make it their own, and it gives them these guardrails of that. So Ron, I know you love these resources. You every time we've talked about this is something that I feel that you're really passionate about. So how are you seeing these utilized?
yeah. So, I mean, obviously during halftime, and I think that with the halftime devotions, when you're scheduling out a halftime speaker, everything you said rings true. A lot of times you have to give them a time limit. And if you were, if we're being honest, a lot of times those are the types of things that can derail your timeliness on a game day because somebody is long-winded, right? So you have a lot of people in your church who are willing to do devotions, who are passionate about sharing it with people. They may be a little nervous, which is understandable, but they're not exactly sure what to talk about. And so halftime devotions takes that out of their hands, and it allows them to have something to present. Now, you can do something that is going to be in line with the devotions each week, and we have displayed here the virtues, and it is going to do that. But for the themed, I know that it'll look a little bit different. And we've got some other options for them as well. So a lot of them are object lessons, but all of these can be done, I would say, in 5 minutes or less. For sure, you can definitely trim it up, and they can be given basically like a really, really good guide for doing devotions. Now, the other thing is that we also have handouts for that people can give out at halftime, and they can do that as well. So it's huge. It just takes all the pressure off of that person who's doing devotions and allows them to do it with a great level of success. The other thing that I would say is when you're using these devotions, you still need to allow people to have a little bit of flavor, right? Like it's not like, you're giving it to them. It's like, hey, look, I need you to read this like word for word and make this happen. The key thing is for them to get to that bottom line and that main point of the devotion, and they'll have success. So you want to give it out to them in plenty of time, and they'll be able to do a good job with it. A lot of times it really does work well when they can get it ahead of time, so that way they can kind of personalize it. Same thing for the coaches and the practice devotions, and you'll see your halftime volunteers do a great job with it. So
I love this. I love this feature. Also, I love, you and I were talking about this feature the other day, and you were saying, make sure you don't skip halftime devotions. This is a time where you have parents sitting there and they are looking directly at you, and it's quiet. You could shut your concession down for just 2 or 3 minutes and speak into the life of the parent, the teacher from the school that stopped by, the grandparent. This is a great way to have their ear, and they see you for 8 weeks, and you have built a relationship with them. And by week 8, you are able to present the gospel to the parent. You're able to invite them to take a next step inside of your church. So do not skip this this resource. It's one of my favorites. It's also it gives you access to take the burden off of the volunteer in this case. So I love halftime devotions.
And can I say one more?
Yeah, absolutely.
One more thing about this one is like alongside of what you just said, because we were talking about this too, with halftime devotions, most of the time, this is just a tip, like you can talk to one of two people. It's hard to really talk to both. You can, but most of the time you're either going to talk to the adults at halftime, or you're primarily going to be focusing on the kids. And I've seen a lot of churches where they decide that, hey, at halftime, especially if the devotion lines up with what the kids are already learning, hey, we're going to talk to the parents. And obviously all the other adults that are in the gym, and that's how we're going to approach the devotions for halftime. Or you could aim it at the kids. I've seen the devotion really be aimed at the kids who are actually playing the game. Now you can decide for your church which one's the best take, but I would say you probably have to decide that you're going to aim it at one group or the other, because if you try to do for everybody, because of it's a short time frame, you're going to have a lower level of success and clarity, I would say. So be sure to do that for your halftime, and you'll have great success with it.
Agree. We have 2 last resources I want to spotlight for you, and then we're going to open it for questions. This is the Gospel Video Library. Many of you guys that are on here, I'm seeing you are past, as in long-time league directors. You've been here for a long time. You may remember the Gospel Video DVD that came to you and you passed them out or you showed it. Well, I feel that this is a way, and it's so much more effective. This goes along the line too, Ron, with all your scheduling and emails. I would say take a day, schedule it all out. This is a great place for you to share the gospel with families that you serve. You get to choose from numerous options in the library. We also have them listed by age, along with a gospel video guide that helps you answer questions for parents, or it helps you lay it out for them and help them understand it more. One thing you're going to probably talk about, and I'm going to steal your thunder here, is don't create this as just a checklist, as in, oh, I sent the gospel video out, check, mark that off my list. Don't skip this. This is what we're leading up to in these ministry resources. So Ron, tell us about the Gospel Video Library. When do you see the best time or way to implement getting this video in the hands of our families?
So that's a good question. So it really does depend on your context. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information to kind of make that point. But the important thing to remember is that these are not the same videos that these aren't like every video isn't like 5 years old or something like that. These are being refreshed and we're adding to the library. So keep in mind, we've basically got enough videos in there for you to actually rotate it if you wanted to. So just because a kid saw a gospel video 3 years ago doesn't mean they're going to see the same one. So we've got, and they're just high production, awesome quality. Anyway, you can simply email it and text it. You can do that. We know, some people are going to view it and some people aren't, but I would do that as a default at a bare minimum. That's like the bare minimum, like check the box, go ahead and send it. But doing it on a game day is great. It can take some of these videos are short enough where they could be your halftime devotion if you wanted it to be. So you could do that. The other thing that you can do is show it at your season celebration. And that is just a great, clear way to present the gospel. Every season celebration doesn't have a speaker or a special performance. So this is a great setup for a gospel. I mean, this is a gospel presentation, high production gospel presentation. This is a great setup for somebody to come in after the video and give a chance for people to respond to the gospel message. Each video makes the gospel clear, and it's great. And why would you want to text it or email it? Well, you've got families who are Christians, who are believers, and it tees up the parent to be able to have that moment with their child and follow up with their child and be able to possibly lead their child to Christ, which is a great honor in a Christian home. So you can do it. I would say do it all at the end of the day. But if I had to say like the bare minimum way would be to text and email it for sure. The other things I would highly encourage though.
So you heard it here. Make sure you use the resource. It is updated yearly for you. My favorite right now, I don't know if you guys have taken time to watch it, is the portal. I highlighted it right here. It's for the older age group. It's wonderful. And one thing we've talked about too, Ron, is week 8. That's typically gospel week. So as you're preparing through this, as you're mapping out what your coaches are presenting, remember, build up. Week 8, focus on that. Prepare, get your church congregation to truly be praying over the gospel that will be shared in week 8. Week 8 is a very big week. And so utilize that. So
And
this
can I
is,
have,
yeah,
sorry.
jump
Well,
in.
I was just going to add to that. Thank you for reminding me about that. Week 8 is Gospel Week, and so why do we present the gospel? Why do we have it scheduled to present the gospel on week 8? Well, in an 11-week season, that gives time for follow-up, and follow-up is so important. So if a child responds to the gospel, whether it's at home, during a practice, however it is, it does give you a chance to be able to respond to that child. And of course, you can vary when you want to do that gospel presentation. And the other option that you also have is for your coaches to use that cell phone that they most likely have with them and show the gospel video during that week. It doesn't have to be that way, but a coach is very capable of, my phone is huge. So you could definitely get, 8 kids around it and they could watch the video if you wanted to, but the possibilities are vast. So there's a lot of different ways to do it.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. So go to the Gospel Video Library, check it out. Let us know what you think about it. Our last resource I want to spotlight, and thanks for bearing with me. We've had some great resources, so we wanted to spotlight as many as we can. We're going to open it for questions here in a minute. This is our follow-up guides, and I have one. And I told Ron, oh, it smells so good. It takes me back to being a child. I don't know if you guys remember getting like little books in the mail that you could draw in. That's what it reminds me of. It's amazing. It's awesome. So this is our follow-up guide. This tool is hot off the press. This is a great way for you to utilize this. It is age specific. Right now, it is the younger age kids. We are in the works of doing a youth one, so stay tuned. That's coming soon. But this is designed not for every child in your league. This is designed for the child after that week 8 experience that has accepted Christ. And this walks them through next steps of what they can do. This is an interactive way once they've made the decision to follow Christ. I absolutely love it. And this is something that you order. And so after your league has taken place, you can order this and use this. Ron, I know that you were excited to receive this in the mail yourself. Tell us about this resource. Tell us about what you see churches in general, how this is going to help them have conversations and even create this discipleship opportunity.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So this is actually something that I requested. It's not solely based on my request, but as a league director, I remember I asked for this. So I was on that list of people who were like, hey, this would be great if we had something. And so I've looked at it personally. I've got one, right next to me, and it's great. I don't know, we've made a post about it, but several pastors have actually read over it and poured into this resource. That's an important thing to highlight. This wasn't something that was just on our staff, but we've had clergy come in and affirm that this is a good follow-up to a child who's made a decision for Christ. And so this is huge, guys, and this is just something that allows you to continue that connection and properly follow up. I know that churches have their methods, but for churches that are looking for ways to properly follow up with kids, this is just great. And you can't beat the price. It's $3 when you break it down. Am I getting that right? I think, yeah,
That's right.
It's $3 per book, and you can't find an equivalent guide of this magnitude that's going to take a child through a few weeks of just follow-up that the parent can go through with, or an adult at church, however you do it. And so there's even a place in the back of the guide where a church can, have a special note, and you'd probably print off a sticker that would be a special note from the church to kind of just keep that child and that family connected with your church. So it's huge. It's just one of the most important parts of evangelism and outreach is follow-up. And this allows you to be able to do that with success and do it well.
That's great. These are actually our giveaways here in just a minute. If you just joined on, I'm giving you one more minute to put your name and your church name. I'm giving a pack to 4 different churches that are on here today. So there's 10 in a pack. Now is our time for questions. I've seen a lot of questions come in. So we're going to take 5 minutes and answer these questions. And then what we will do is I'll do the giveaway really quick. One question that I had that came in was, can I customize my own church devotions? I'm going to ask, and then Ron, you can answer. We can both answer. So I'll pass that one to you. Can I, as my own church, customize my own devotions into my system?
So that is actually something that we're working on. So the short answer is no, not right now, not yet. But that is something that we are working on right now. It's in the works for you to be able to customize the devotion that appears in the app. So when a coach logs in, they'll be able to see the church's customized devotion for that week. So we've heard that feedback. And we're going to try and make it happen. And so that's actually already in the works right now.
Great question. Another question is, does our coordinator signing up for the program have ability to share logins or provide separate logins for pastors and volunteers to see the resources inside of My Upward?
So you can, if I'm understanding the question correctly, you can give another person a login for somebody else to log into My Upward. However, they're going to be able to do more than just simply see the resources. So they could log in and go to the resources and be able to see those things. However, you just have to know that they would also have access to, at the very least, to input data. But if that's somebody that you trust, well, then that shouldn't be an issue. But right now we don't have anything, we don't have a way for somebody to specifically only look at resources only and not be able to do anything.
Absolutely. So David, the permissions is not able to be set specifically. If you're looking at coaches, I would input them yourself and give them coaches access. So they just see what they need as coaches. If it's another pastor and they're wanting to see what resources, you can add them into the system. But again, they're going to see, they can log in and see children's information, things like that. So you just want to be very mindful of that. Yes. Let's see here. Will the coach, support staff, and director have access to see any email that goes out to parents if a login exists for the volunteer?
Yes, you can, as long as that volunteer is using My Upward, then they will be able to, if they're using My Upward in the app, to be able to send out emails, then they can go into the history of My Upward and see the emails and texts that are being sent through My Upward. So under your account. Does that answer the question?
That's it. Yeah, that's a great word. I'm going to answer 2 more questions. This one is, it's been a few years since our church provided this to our community. Well, we hope you're coming back, David. Are there weekly theme songs? I remember the theme songs. I'm about to sing one, but I'm not going to do it. Are there weekly theme songs or encouraging songs to provide kids that help them reinforce memory verses?
Okay, so I do know that those, from being a kids pastor previously, I do know that those resources exist. It's not something that we provide, though. Right. If we're talking, especially if we're talking about like the memory verses that we have each week.
Yeah, I think you're talking about script tunes, David. In the past, we had something called script tunes that you could plug in and they would listen to them and they would memorize the verse. So now we have cards that you could purchase, individual cards that they could take home and they could utilize in that way if you're wanting to implement it. All right, last question. You said 1 copy of the game plan should be purchased per child. No, I don't think you should purchase 1 per child. That's my personal opinion. I'll let Ron answer that. I know he mentioned $3 per child, but that is or $3 per book. But I personally would purchase this after the week 8 mark, once you know how many children have made that decision, or me, I probably would purchase one pack and have it on hand that when I would need it. Ron, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. So, in kids ministry, we would have something similar. We would have some kind of follow-up for children who have made a decision for Christ, and maybe a parent would come looking for that guide. Well, like you said, I would have a pack on hand, at least have a minimum amount. And whenever you get low, reorder to make sure you always have one to hand a child, because you never know when they make a decision. But
Right.
you can at least have a minimum amount, but I wouldn't order more than 10 until, like you said, after that date and you saw that, okay, I saw that, maybe 30 kids have made a decision this year. Well, I need, two or three more packs. So
Great. Last question. I missed this one, Ron, was you refresh all of your other materials. Do you refresh the follow-up guide every year?
okay. Yeah, so this is like straight up new, right? So there's no precedent being set. However, it will get a refresh. We can say, I think me and you were talking about that earlier, and we know that it will get refreshed. But the nice thing is that it's not dated. It's not something that should age, because once a child has gone through this, there should be another step in their life where they don't like continue to go through it, this particular follow-up plan. They would then, hopefully be discipled by the church with other resources and different things. But I can say with confidence, based on the team that we've got, that it will get a periodic refresh. So that way the content is meeting the needs. And
Agree.
I did want to follow one thing. This the one that we have in production right now is 3rd through 6th graders.
Correct.
Okay. And so we are working on the early
Oh,
elementary,
yeah, you're right.
right?
You're right.
Okay.
I
Okay.
said that backwards. Thank
No,
you
I
for
just wanted to make sure.
clarifying.
Okay.
He's right. He's right. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, one last question. I said there was not, someone sent one in.
Oh, I like it. No, this is
I do
good.
too. I love it. So, and I'm glad you're going to answer this. How do I do a devotion on a field for halftime if I have 3 different fields going on? It is halftime.
Yeah.
What is the best way? Do I this league director says, do I hand out the flyer of the devotion? Do I not do a devotion? I would say don't do that. But what are your thoughts there, Ron? If I'm hosting an outside sport on a field, what is the best way to do a devotion with a field concept?
So I've seen, so there's been a church that I've worked with that had this issue. And so PA system, you've got, that is 101. If you don't have it, well, then we know what the limitations are there. That's just plain and simple. But provided that you get an outdoor, and when I say PA, an outdoor speaker, provided that you get a proper outdoor speaker, I've seen it done to one of 2 ways. Either if the fields are far enough apart, then you could have a speaker that is only set to speak to the audience that's right on that field. And the key thing is timing at that point, making sure that your games are ending where the halftime is about at the same time. The other option is, and also timing is a big thing, as long as your referees are keeping time properly and you guys can get your halftimes to sync, you can have one devotion go on for all of the fields, provided that you just have the speakers right in the center, as long as your fields are there in such a way where it's like, hey, look, if there is a center, hey, look, well, then you could do that. And I've seen churches do that with success, where the referees have kept the clock, and halftime are basically, they're ending in about within a minute. And so boom, as soon as everybody's at halftime, they go ahead and do the devotion. The speakers are loud enough and they're able to do it. So
That's great. That's great. So do it. Take advantage
but
of the
the
opportunity.
other option is, I do want to say, you can do handouts too.
Agree.
Don't feel like you have to
But
do
do something.
yes, do something. You can do handouts. Please don't hear me say you have to speak every week. We have handouts for you to give out, and I think you should. And you can also give a custom message out from a staff person on staff, like a pastor, and they can do their own devotion on one of our templates, and it looks really good. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Ron, for being here, for being our expert today. spending a little bit longer with me today than normal on our webinars, but this one to me is so important. This is why we do what we do. We want to love on our coaches. We want to share the gospel with them, with our parents, with the kids that we come in contact with. So if you're on this call and you're interested in starting Upward Sports, go to upward.org and schedule a call today. We want to hear what you want to do and help customize it. If you're a partner that's moving upward for a year, for 15 years, 25 years, I hope this encourages you to see the tools that you have at your fingertips, implement them this season, invest in the lives of your coaches, pour into them, minister to them, and then they in turn will pour into the lives of your families, your children. Share that gospel video in a way you've never done this year, but share the gospel and know that we as a ministry partner are here to listen to you. We love the God moment stories. We love to hear what God's doing in your community, but we also love to help implement new resources. All right, so now is the time for our giveaway, and then we'll close in prayer. We have 4. Again, we're giving away 1 pack to 4 churches. Let me spin my wheel. Justin Hill, First Baptist Church, Fredericksburg, Texas. You are the lucky winner. Matthew from Mission Point, Mansfield, Ohio. You are the second winner. 3rd, Brad Habeger, Grace Church, Morton, Illinois. You are our 3rd one. Our last one is Mark Constantine, Door Creek Church. Mark from Door Creek Church. Let me call the names, make sure I have them right again. Justin Hill, First Baptist Church, Fredericksburg, Texas. Matthew from Mission Point, Mansfield, Ohio. Brad, Grace Church, Morton, Illinois. And Mark, Door Creek Church. Congrats. You guys are our lucky winners today. So what I will do is I will reach out to you. And I will definitely send those to you in the mail. I'm excited about that. We have one more episode coming up, November the 29th. I hope you're going to be a part of it. We are bringing in Danny Franks. He is from Summit Church. He is the author of People Are the Mission, and it's going to be a really good giveaway. Everybody will be a winner if you're live. So you definitely want to be a part of that one. He's going to talk about hospitality and how hospitality equals connections formed, and that leads right into your practices and your game days. So I hope that this is important to you, and I hope that you find this beneficial because we really want to provide just-in-time resources for you. So again, thank you so much, Ron, for your time. Thank you to our church partners and people that are interested in sports. We want to support you to reach your community for sharing Jesus. I'm going to close this in prayer. And then as you have questions, always reach out to myself or to Ron, and we're here to help. Let me close this in prayer. Dear Lord, I thank you so much. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to share you with our communities, for each leader that is on here, for those that are considering sports ministry. Lord, I just pray that they see the need for reaching their families and their community. And Lord, that they use sports as a tool to do that. For all these leagues that are taking place right now, Lord, I just pray a special prayer for families that are registering, for coaches that are coaching, Lord, and for parents that are going to bring their kids. And Lord, I pray for each child that they hear the name Jesus this season. And Lord, for these league directors that are on here, Lord, we know that this is a big undertaking. But Lord, I pray for strength for them, that they use these ministry resources in a way that they never have. And Lord, may many families and many children come to know you as their Lord and Savior. Thank you again for this time, Lord. We love you. Amen. All right, guys, thank you so much and have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
See you guys.